Well, as America celebrates a new all-time high for the Dow Jones Industrials, taking a look at the president and the irony of this day, no doubt for him. He's low in the polls despite this news and plunging gas prices and a still pretty strong economy, largely because of the war in Iraq. Ironic because his father enjoyed wild popularity for his Iraq war, but then a poor economy that cost him ultimately re-election. Perspective now from George Bush Sr.'s Secretary of State, Lawrence Eagleburger. A weird twist of events, huh, Secretary?
Neil, first of all, I want to thank you for including me with all those captains of industry.
Well, you are a captain.
And yeah, I know so much about the stock market. No, I don't contend that the stock market by itself is the only indicator, but when you have this kind of support and enthusiasm for this country and what's going on in it, I think that shows a strength that we all ought to wish we would recognize in other areas, and I could particularly commend it to the Democratic Party, which seems to be so wimpish on everything else. What will it do to the president? Why is it so peculiar? I think, frankly, we've got another month or so. I think it's going to make a difference. Whether it'll make enough difference to put the Republicans back in control of the two houses of the Congress is another question, but it certainly isn't going to hurt. And now I will admit Iraq is going to make a difference in how it goes, but assuming Iraq stays more or less as it is, I think it's going to make a difference for the president, and I think if it continues, it's going to make a difference for the Republicans 2 years from now. And to the degree their politics are influenced by that, I think it makes a difference. Here again, I think that the campaign of trying to do everything that's possible to demonstrate that what's going on in Iraq is a disaster for this country when that's not the case, when we are in fact winning slowly but surely, although there's much more to be done, the constant drumming on this does make a difference, and it's had an impact on the body politic, which is certainly not good for the administration.
Very quickly, Lawrence, the perception becomes the reality in politics, as you know.
Yep.
And the perception on the part of many Americans is that Iraq is a disaster and that the Dow is only for those rich fat cats. Is that what will ultimately decide the midterm elections?
No, I don't think so. I don't think this attitude of the Dow is only for the fat cats is any longer the case either. There are too many people, I gather, who are involved in the stock market that it's not just the fat cats. That doesn't make the difference, I don't think. I think what will make the difference is if Iraq turns to a real mess, there's no question the Republicans will lose. If it stays as it is now, I think this may save the Republican Party.
You know, a little more than a month to go before Election Day, and we got a Wall Street record day as well. Are Democrats then ruining this day? Well, I have a fellow, not my next guest, not George McGovern. The former presidential candidate says that Americans' greatest worry remains the war in Iraq, and the party that can best come up with a plan to get us out will get itself in the House, in the Senate, and maybe even in the presidency. With us now, the author of Out of Iraq and the 1972 presidential candidate, George McGovern. Senator, good to have you.
Pleasure to be on your program.
First off, today, despite the war, Senator, despite all the division over that war, the war on terror, we had a record in the Dow Jones Industrials. What do you make of that?
It's a good thing. You know, the economy is active. Wars sometimes actually stimulate an economy, as happened both in World War I and World War II. You don't oppose war because it's bad for business. You oppose war when it's not in the interest of the nation.
My point was, to be fair, Senator, that you would think with all that division, all that anger, by the way, echoed by many Republicans, that we would not be doing well on Wall Street, or there'd be concern about division. Do you think that maybe the market has gone past this and sees a resolution to this that maybe many of us right now do not?
Well, if that's the cause, and it's possible it is, I'm delighted with that. I would like to see the business community look at this war from the standpoint of the realities there. I'd like to see the whole country look at it that way. It's my belief that most Americans have now concluded that the war in Iraq was unnecessary and, in fact, was a tragic mistake.
But the quick addendum to that, Senator, is most Americans are leery of just pulling out.
Exactly.
So what's the answer?
And they don't know what the plan is to get out. That's why we wrote this book, Out of Iraq, Professor William Polk, and he's also an experienced American diplomat.
Okay, so Senator, I'm an insurgent listening to what you said, and I'm saying, all right, 6 months. I'll wait 6 months.
That's the withdrawal timetable to get 140,000 American troops out of Iraq as safely as possible with minimal damage to any interest we have in Iraq.
But what I'm saying is that 6 month time frame, whatever it is,
yeah,
would then certainly be a cue to nefarious elements within Iraq to wait 6 months to pounce, because then the Americans
they're not waiting now. There's an insurgency going on there that's one of the bloodiest in modern history.
I wonder if we can use that tomorrow. I guess we can if it's just any little bit over it, right? Welcome back, everyone. In the sweeping language we use to define bull and bear markets, some link the beginning of this bull run to my next guest's dad. 1982, Ronald Reagan. A recession cracked, an economic recovery the likes of which we have never seen unleashed, and largely because taxes were cut. Does it ring a bell? Well, it does to my next guest. With me now, best-selling author and one of Ronald Reagan's greatest achievements, his son. I'm wondering now, bull and bear markets are so, hastily defined, but a lot of folks do believe, Michael, as you know, that the arch of the bull market that we have now started with the tax cuts and the interest rate developments of Paul Volcker back in 1982, and your dad in that same period that was the worst of the recession. We were just coming out of it. Do you buy that this is a continuation of that?
I think it's a continuation because the President of the United States has helped continue that also. Going into office, cutting taxes on the American people, allowing us to invest more into the economy and the private sector, which drives up the market. So I think it is a continuation because the President has continued it. And I hope that, in fact, that they finally make the tax cuts that they gave us, make them permanent, even though they're not now.
All right. Now, your father and this president, both similar in that they had some good economies going their way, despite some bumps along the way. Of course, this president had some serious bumps along the way. Both big believers in tax cuts, both also big deficits. And that's what Democrats are pounding this president on.
Yeah, it's interesting they pound the president on deficits. The Democrats were the king of deficits for so many years. But
usually a president who's around when you're spending a lot, or when there's a war going on, or when people are enjoying tax cuts, he would be doing a lot better in the polls than this one is. Why is it?
Well, he's down in the polls because there's so many other issues going on. You've got the war in Iraq every day.
So we ignore the economy. We ignore the market.
Well, this president, we should not ignore if the economy's stupid. But
so
this White House...
Why do we? The war?
I think the war, because it's on the front pages every single night. If it bleeds, it leads. And that's what's on the front pages every single night. You're talking about the market today, what it's doing. But what about all the other television shows and radio shows? What are they going to be talking about? About the war. Who died today? Who got killed? That's what people see each and every day.